Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that feels straight out of a sci-fi blockbuster, but it's completely real. We're unpacking a massive reported shift in military doctrine, pulled right from recent strategic journals. We're looking at how a fully integrated digital battle network allegedly took apart a much larger, numerically superior force in South Asia. So grab a seat and settle in, because we are going to break down the anatomy of this reported modern battle layer by layer. We'll see exactly how the cloud, cyber warfare, and traditional air power are merging into a single, terrifyingly efficient machine.
Right off the bat, we're faced with the ultimate geopolitical question of our time. How on earth can two heavily armed neighbors actually engage in direct conflict without, triggering a total nuclear apocalypse? Think of it like this. Imagine two giants locked in a tiny room, and the floor is completely covered in dynamite. They really want to throw punches, but any massive, sudden movement could just blow them both to pieces. Because of that, the conflict has to become incredibly precise. It has to be highly calculated and, increasingly, totally invisible. The journals we're analyzing today suggest the answer isn't about dropping bigger bombs anymore. It's actually about blinding your opponent before they even know the fight has started.
To really grasp these reports, we have to first understand the South Asian nuclear overhang. According to analysis from the Center for International Strategic Studies, there's a rigid baseline concept at play here called full-spectrum deterrence. Basically, this means a nation keeps a wide variety of strategic, operational, and tactical nuclear weapons on hand to deter aggression at absolutely any scale. It acts like an invisible ceiling that forces everyone to carefully calibrate every single military action. You just can't launch a massive ground invasion anymore. Everything, absolutely everything, has to be calculated to achieve military goals without crossing that ultimate red line.
Now, that invisible ceiling, it forced a ridiculously rapid evolution in strategy. If we trace the timeline, we can see exactly how this buildup happened, going from the conventional air duels of February 2019 all the way up to the reported multi-domain clashes of May 2025. Back in 2019, the Pulwama-Balakot crisis ended with Operation Swift Retort, which was a pretty conventional air skirmish. But strategic analysis shows this was just the catalyst. By 2021, sources report a massive command-level restructuring within the Pakistan Air Force, setting up dedicated commands for cyber, electronic warfare, and space. And all of that groundwork reportedly hit its climax in May 2025 during an unprecedented, beyond visual range, multi-domain clash.
The Center for International Strategic Studies notes that the 2019 Balakot skirmishes basically proved that sheer brute air power just wasn't enough anymore. The documents describe how that clash involved swamping radar scopes and linking up early warning systems. It essentially created an environment where pilots were glued to multifunction displays, streaming real-time data. One analyst described it almost like playing a massive, high-stakes video game in the skies. And that realization right there, it sparked a rapid doctrinal evolution. They realized they didn't just need to buy more jets, they needed to build a smarter, deeply connected neural network for those jets to live inside.
So, military analysts report this massive pivot in doctrine. We're seeing a shift away from the old fighter-centric model, which really relies on having a sheer numbers advantage and traditional close-quarters dogfights, and a move toward a net-centric model. Think of the old way like individual knights riding out onto the battlefield to joust. The new way, the net-centric way, it's much more like a hive mind. It leans heavily on indigenous networks where sensors, shooters, and decision-makers are completely integrated onto one secure communications grid. You aren't just fighting the single jet flying in front of you anymore, you are up against the entire enemy ecosystem.
Which brings us to multi-domain warfare. Now, according to aviation experts who actually toured these facilities, this is way more than just a military buzzword. It's essentially a digital and kinetic symphony. We're talking hackers, satellites, artificial intelligence, unmanned drones, and traditional fighter jets all reading off the exact same sheet music in real time. By using indigenous satellites for 24/7 intelligence and secure SATCOM connectivity, pilots get this unmatched level of situational awareness. The physical jet itself is really just the sharp tip of a very long, highly digital spear.
Okay, so the crucial point here is how this integration creates what's called a detect, track, engage kill chain. It acts like this invisible digital spiderweb that traps an adversary before they even realize they've flown into it. Step 1. Space Command and early warning sensors detect the movement. Step 2. That raw data is fed instantly into a secure cloud, which reports identify as Link 17, tracking the target and feeding a single recognized air picture into every single cockpit. And finally, Step 3, the engagement. This could be a kinetic missile strike or a targeted cyber attack. The whole system compresses decision time for the defender while completely stripping away situational awareness from the attacker.
Defense journals report that this net-centric doctrine faced its ultimate test on May 7, 2025. Sources describe a truly unprecedented, beyond visual range air battle. The reports detail an incoming Indian strike package of about 72 fighters being met by a Pakistan intercept package of just 42 fighters. So on paper, that looks like a pretty severe numerical disadvantage, right? But because of that multi-domain architecture we just unpacked, the smaller force was reportedly able to execute a massive ambush, trapping those advancing formations right inside that meticulously constructed kill chain.
But how did they actually spring that ambush? Well, before kinetic shots were even fired, the digital battle space was allegedly completely conquered. I'll read through this fast because the sheer scale of the reported cyber attack is overwhelming. Cyber warriors rapidly hijacked 3 adversary satellites, they severed secure downlinks, they completely neutralized GPS signals, they allegedly crippled 96% of social networks to control the information flow, and they penetrated critical civilian and military infrastructure like banks, energy grids, and railways. It is the ultimate modern military analogy, literally turning off all the lights in the boxing ring before you even throw the first punch.
Aviation expert Alan Warnes reviewed this operational architecture and noted a totally staggering level of situational awareness. The defenders essentially had eyes everywhere. The cloud gave them a definitive first shoot, first kill advantage. I mean, think about it. If you know exactly when your adversary lifts off, their exact trajectory, and their intended target, the entire element of surprise is inverted. The attacker actually becomes the hunted. When we look at strategy papers from the Center for International Strategic Studies, they revealed that the real backbone of this entire operation is the command and control of airspace using early warning sensors. They point out that managing these sensors efficiently, without doubling up efforts across different military branches, is absolutely paramount. This deeply integrated vigilance is exactly what allows a smaller, technologically synchronized force to punch way above its weight class. It lets them maintain full-spectrum operational readiness without totally bankrupting the nation's economy.
And adding to the almost cinematic scale of these reports, the psychological warfare was just as intense as the electronic warfare. The Pakistani Interior Minister later claimed on the anniversary of the conflict that their drones operated completely undetected over highly sensitive locations in the adversary's capital for hours, including right over the Prime Minister's residence. Now, whether you view that as an intelligence-gathering triumph or a very stark psychological message, it strongly reinforces this narrative of total airspace and sensor dominance.
6. That is the number of adversary jets reportedly downed during the engagement, at least according to the journals we are reviewing today. It's a figure that really cemented the operational success of the kill chain. It serves as a stark metric of how an asymmetric advantage, one gained through superior electronic warfare, tracking, and beyond visual range missile technology, translates directly into tangible kinetic results up in the sky.
Yet even with that clear asymmetric advantage, a senior officer revealed a fascinating detail. They noted that they absolutely had the capability to shoot down more aircraft, but they deliberately held back. This highlights an incredible level of disciplined restraint. Even in the absolute chaotic heat of a highly advanced multi-domain battle, where adrenaline and the fog of war usually take over, the operational forces were meticulously managed. And why? To prevent a localized skirmish from spiraling into an all-out catastrophic war.
And that restraint brings us right back to the nuclear overhang we discussed at the very beginning. Pakistan's nuclear deterrence forces political and military leaders to craft strategies that constantly take real-time nuclear capability into consideration. That invisible ceiling dictates that full, unbridled escalation is simply not an option for anyone. Actually, it's the very presence of this deterrence that limits conflicts to these hyper-precise, targeted cyberkinetic strikes, making this kind of highly controlled, high-tech ambush the terrifying new norm in modern warfare.
So the aftermath of this alleged clash, it wasn't just about down jets or disrupted power grids. It completely rewrote the narrative around regional deterrence. The sources we're looking at note that this episode positioned the defending force as a deeply competent, highly sharp military actor. It allowed them to shape regional deterrence, it secured stronger international defense partnerships, and, most importantly, it showcased to the world the absolute efficacy of cyber-integrated air power. The traditional metric of just counting how many fighter jets a country has, it's officially obsolete.
Which leaves us with this. If a military can paralyze an adversary's satellites, completely blind their GPS, shut down their social media networks, and track every single movement of their aircraft all through a secure digital cloud, literally before a single missile leaves its rail, what does this mean for the future of global conflict? The invisible digital battlefield has forever changed the nature of war, making the line between code and combat entirely indistinguishable. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.